What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com, DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. I like to party for the people. Have equipment, will travel. Mobile DJ, it's what I do. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag, What Makes You Famous. For learn stuff together, let's get smarter. What makes you smarter? Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, June 25th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1. One-day coronavirus case surge breaks April record. The U.S. recorded a record 45,557 one-day jump in coronavirus cases on Wednesday, according to an NBC News tally. That figure exceeded the previous record set on April 26th by more than 9,000. Johns Hopkins University count confirmed infections showed 34,700 new confirmed coronavirus cases the previous day, meaning at the time that was the biggest increase since the previous peak in April. The new record came as several states, including Arizona, California, Mississippi, Nevada, Oklahoma, and Texas, reported single-day infection records. North and South Carolina broke records for new hospitalizations just weeks after easing lockdowns to let businesses reopen. Quote, people got complacent, end quote, said Dr. Mark Boom, CEO of the Houston Methodist Hospital System. Quote, and it's coming back to bite us, quite frankly, end quote. This is according to NBC News and the Associated Press. Number 2, appeals court tells judge to dismiss Michael Flynn charges. A federal appeals court ruled Wednesday that U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan must dismiss the criminal case against President Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn. The appeals court, in a 2-1 decision, said Sullivan does not have the authority to examine the Justice Department's reasons for dropping the prosecution of Flynn, who twice pleaded guilty to lying to federal agents about his contacts with Russia's ambassador between President Trump's election and his inauguration. The Justice Department moved in May to drop the charges after Flynn, the only Trump administration official to face criminal prosecution in former special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russia's election meddling, asked to withdraw his guilty plea. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 3, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut to quarantine travelers from coronavirus hotspots. The governors of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut on Wednesday issued a travel advisory requiring visitors from states with high coronavirus infection rates to quarantine for 14 days after entering their states. Quote, we have to make sure the virus doesn't come in on a plane, end quote. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Democrat, said New York was the country's biggest hotspot for weeks before its infection rate fell. Quote, we worked very hard to get the viral transmission rate down, end quote. Cuomo said, quote, and we don't want to see it go up, end quote. The 3 states said their advisory applied to states with 7-day rolling average positive test rates above 10 per 100,000 residents, or those with a 7-day rolling average of a 10% or higher positivity rate. This is according to CNN and CNBC. Number 4, prosecutor, DOJ official tell House that Barr exerted political pressure. A federal prosecutor and a Justice Department official on Wednesday told the House Judiciary Committee that Attorney General William Barr and his top deputies exerted pressure in some criminal cases, quote, based on political considerations, end quote. Aaron Zelinsky, an assistant U.S. attorney in Maryland, formally detailed to the Russia investigation by former special counsel Robert Mueller, described, quote, heavy pressure, end quote, to go easy on GOP operative Roger Stone because he was a longtime ally of President Trump. John Elias, an official in the DOJ's antitrust division, said Barr ordered investigations of marijuana company mergers due to a, quote, personal dislike, end quote, of their industry. Elias said Barr, quote, poses the greatest threat in my lifetime to our rule of law, end quote. Former Attorney General Michael Mukasey dismissed allegations that Barr had politicized the Justice Department. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 5, IMF says global economy to shrink more than previously projected. The International Monetary Fund projected on Wednesday that the global economy would shrink by 4.9% this year, deeper than the 3% contraction it forecast in April. The change reflected rising concerns that the stubborn spreading of the coronavirus pandemic threatened to worsen the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, even though many countries have started reopening their economies after prolonged lockdowns. The IMF also noted that even in areas where businesses are reopening, social distancing and workplace safety protocols are creating a drag on activity. The fund said it expected the total global economic loss through 2021 to exceed $12 trillion. Quote, this is a crisis like no other and will have a recovery like no other, end quote, said Jita Gopinath, director of the IMF's research department. This is according to the New York Times. Number 6, grand jury indicts 3 white suspects in Ahmaud Arbery killing. A grand jury has indicted 3 white men arrested over the fatal shooting of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, an unarmed black man who was jogging through their southern Georgia neighborhood. Cobb County District Attorney Joyette Holmes said Wednesday. Travis McMichael, who was shown in a video shooting Arbery with his shotgun, his father Greg McMichael, who was also armed, and William Roddy Bryan, who captured the video on his smartphone, were formally charged with 9 counts, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, and false imprisonment. The McMichaels said they grabbed their guns and chased down Arbery in their pickup truck because they thought he was a burglar. Bryan, the McMichaels' neighbor, said he was not involved in the confrontation. This is according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Number 7, Democrats block Senate GOP police reform bill. Senate Democrats on Wednesday blocked Republicans from advancing their police reform bill. The legislation fell 5 votes short of the 60 required to move it forward. Quote, the harsh fact of the matter is the bill is so deeply fundamentally and irrevocably flawed, it cannot serve as a useful starting point for meaningful reform, end quote, said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat, New York. Democrats believe the bill, which was championed by Senator Tim Scott, Republican, South Carolina, was particularly lacking in terms of holding law enforcement accountable for misconduct. For example, it didn't seek to change qualified immunity standards. 3 members of the Democratic caucus, Senators Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia, Doug Jones, Democrat, Alabama, and Angus King, Independent, Maine, voted in favor of the bill. This is according to the Washington Post. Number 8, Senate confirms Trump's 200th judicial nominee. The Republican-controlled Senate on Wednesday confirmed its 200th federal judge nominated by President Trump. The 52-48 vote to approve seating Corey Wilson on the influential U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit marked a symbolic milestone in Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's effort to forge a more conservative judiciary. Senator Susan Collins, Republican, Maine, was the only Republican to oppose the nomination. McConnell said Wilson's confirmation meant that for the first time in more than 4 decades, that there are no circuit vacancies to be filled. Quote, it's a victory for the rule of law and for the Constitution itself, end quote, McConnell said. Democrats had urged McConnell not to hold the vote, saying Wilson's strong support for voter ID laws amounted to encouraging voter suppression. This is according to Politico. Number 9, Democrats to hold nearly all virtual convention. The Democratic National Committee on Wednesday told delegates that former Vice President Joe Biden would accept the party's presidential nomination at a mostly virtual convention in Milwaukee in August, so they should not plan to attend. The DNC said after consulting with health authorities about the COVID-19 pandemic, it determined that state delegations should stay home and, quote, conduct their official convention business remotely, end quote. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, a Democrat, said in May that a virtual convention would avoid overwhelming the public health system and putting, quote, the delegates and others that come to the convention in harm's way, end quote. The scaled-down convention will be moved to a smaller venue. It was already moved from July to August due to the pandemic. This is according to NBC News. Number 10, NASA names DC headquarters after first black woman engineer. NASA announced Wednesday it's naming its headquarters in Washington, D.C. after mathematician and aerospace engineer Mary Jackson, the U.S. Space Agency's first black woman engineer. Jackson was, quote, part of a group of very important women who helped NASA succeed in getting American astronauts into space, end quote. NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine said Wednesday, quote, Mary never accepted the status quo. She helped break barriers and open opportunities for African Americans and women in the field of engineering and technology, end quote. Her story was told in the book Hidden Figures, The American Dream, and the Untold Story of the Black Woman Mathematicians Who Helped Win the Space Race, and the movie of the same name. Jackson retired from NASA in 1985 and died in 2005. She posthumously received the Congressional Gold Medal in 2019. This is according to CBS News. That's 10 things you need to know today for Thursday, June 25th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. How's everybody doing out there? Drop me some comments. Let me know what you're up to. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. Peace. I'm out of here. Peace. If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube, username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/Keys Dan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening.